So this video is coming a little earlier than I thought it would. We are 2 videos into 300, so I didn't really know what would happen. So we published how I came to be a defender of the faith and have a belief in Jesus Christ that surpassed anything I thought could happen. We then saw a video on the words in the Book of Mormon, how I'm going to defend the concept or premise that Joseph could not have written the Book of Mormon based on the words within it. I've had a few hundred views. That's great. But I'm getting a lot of interest from the critics and antis. Who am I? A little nobody. And their approach is so interesting that I feel like I need to bring some of this up now. I'll cover it later on in more detail. And here's what I'm thinking. There are 2 great dilemmas for the antis and the critics when it comes to the Book of Mormon. Number 1, Joseph's education. Did he have sufficient education, not just to write the Book of Mormon, but use the words in it that I'm going to show? One of those 2. And the other is the amount of days in which the translation was done, which is 57 days. Both of those are massive dilemmas for the critics. How do they explain that away? How do they turn that? So some of the stuff I'm getting on my channel, it's like, whoa, man, this is very interesting. Again, who am I? And then the layout is so. So this is a setup to really looking at where did the Defenders of the Faith come from? How did it start? And where did the antis come from? How did they start? What are they like today? Because it's very interesting, the techniques and methods they use, the philosophy they use, is pernicious, in my opinion. And I'll show you more about that. I'll expose that. So this is just kind of the big recap. Education, 57 days. Then we'll go into Defenders of the Faith and Defenders of the Book of Mormon being nothing and we're all going to hell. There you go. So let's go to education first, Joseph's. The problem with education back then was it's hard to prove anything because anything pre-Book of Mormon translation 1829, there just isn't much history about Joseph Smith other than from his mother. So we're going to use a little of that. So the church says, well, about 3 years of education is what they think. The critics, 7 years, what they think. But let's first of all decide what that means. So you may not know this, but in education, in the old days, in the upstate New York area, education started in November. And the reason is all kids worked from late March, when they started preparing the ground for planting, through the summer, into the harvest, which ended sometime towards the end of October, 1st of November. So no one's going to school during those times. So first of all, the time in school is short. It's not 9 months like we have today. It's 5 months, 4.5 months, somewhere in that range. So 3 years does not equate to 3 years in our point of view. That's maybe my point. The instructors. Until 1844, there was no, you couldn't go anywhere to be trained to be a teacher. 1844 in the state of New York. That's interesting. Well, what were these people teaching? So the Historical Society of New York put out a published letter in the 1840s apologizing for the lack of quality of education in the 1830s. Now Joseph had from 1811 to 1822, that was kind of the window of his, he could get education, way before the 1830s. And even what the Historical Society is saying is we didn't really have the support of government, didn't really have the support of parents. Each teacher was kind of a one-off. They taught what they wanted to teach. There was no organization, no books that were, this is what book we'll do across the board. So everyone was one-off. It's impossible to decide what any kid would learn. And remember, generally, it was a one-room schoolhouse covering anywhere from first grade up to 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, as high as you think you might want to go. How do you teach all of those in that process in a very short amount of time? Again, 5 months-ish about. Now, the anti say, well, Joseph Smith Sr. was a school teacher, and Oliver Cowdery is a school teacher. As far as I can see, and I may be wrong, Joseph Smith Sr. taught 1 year because he was in debt up to his ears and he had to do something through the wintertime to pay the bills. No training that I can see. Happy to hear from anyone else on that. Oliver Cowdery, he did teach a year in Palmyra. He took his brother's place. The brother was going to, he's leaving. Hey, I got a good guy to replace me, my brother, Oliver Cowdery. He taught for a year. No training. Again, at least that I can see. Anyone have a better view than that? I'd love to hear about it. So education is suspect to begin with. Now the church guesses 3 years, and they say, we're guessing, we don't know. The only thing we do know is from Joseph's mother's autobiography. When he was 7 years old, when he was 6, they had a great thing happen in the Smith family. They had a good crop. They made money. And these people were in poverty most of the time when Joseph was growing up. So they moved from Vermont to New Hampshire, right across the border, and said, okay, our kids, finally, we can give them some education. We always wanted it, just hadn't been able to do it. Joseph's 7 years old. Hiram goes off to a more exclusive place away from this family. The others, the 4 or 5 that are old enough to go to school, go to a local one-room schoolhouse. Okay, so there's Joseph in school, but things go bad quickly. Hiram catches a ugly disease, brings it home, and the whole family gets it. It almost kills one of Joseph's sisters. If his mother hadn't walked her around the floors, she felt like she would have died. But she walked and walked and walked and tried to keep her awake so she wouldn't fall asleep and die. Joseph got the disease. It came to his shoulder. It moved. It settled down to his leg, and this is the famous, well, we brought doctors in to cut into his bone, break off the diseased bone. Again, he's 7 years old. When he's done with that, he's sent with his uncle to the coast to hopefully the sea airs will help him recuperate. So he didn't spend much of that year in school. There is no other place that you can go to say, he went here and here and here. I can see, here's his name. So the antis have a kind of a different angle here. One of the good brothers in the church said, hey, our church, I think I'm going to leave. So he's in college. He's getting into his PhD. I'm going to do my PhD thesis on how many years of education did Joseph really have. I have the time and the effort, and I can dig into this thing. And so he did. I thought, well, at least that's going to be interesting. What has he got? What can he find out? And he came up with 7 years of education. Couldn't prove it in any year except the year I'm talking about, but that's the normative number in the area at that point in time, subjective. So for anyone to say Joseph had a great education is interesting. So I had a brother on my channel say, hey, you probably don't know that Joseph was really a really smart guy. I've heard that before. He had a really smart guy now. And, he studied the Bible a lot. He read a lot. He had access to many books. There's no asterisk on any of that stuff. I asked him for it. Just, tell me where you got this stuff. I'd like to learn it. If I'm wrong, fine. Tell me. Where can I figure that out? I can't find it anywhere. So, Joseph had a underappreciated education for sure. 3rd grade, 7th grade, somewhere in between there. Again, these schools are shorter, and whoever's teaching does not have a curriculum that is standardized. They're doing whatever they think is right. Joseph, when he wrote his autobiography, was saying, I was schooled in the letters. I could read, write a little bit, do a little arithmetic. That's about it. His wife, 50 years after the translation, told her grandson, when he asked her, could Joseph really have done this, the Book of Mormon? Could he translate the Book of Mormon? And she said, well, Joseph Smith couldn't write a coherent line at that point in time. Now, the anti say, I see that, but 50 years after, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Too long. Secondly, it's her grandson who had started, or now was the prophet of the reorganized church. So she had an agenda. She was probably lying to him just to make him feel good. No asterisks, supposition, and lies. cloud that up. That's what their desire is. And as again, I'm not attracting a bunch of activity, but what I see is sad and pathetic, man. It just tell the truth. That's why I want to use words, black and white, because the words are there. They were there in 1830. Came either from Joseph Smith or God. And again, I go back to my channel. I have another brother say, "Oh, you're wrong because you're saying it's either Joseph Smith or God, one of the two." It's not. It's Joseph Smith and the devil. The devil put all that in his head. Okay, interesting theory. I haven't read that from any other anti. Where's your source? There is none. It's hyperbole, and it's just meant to cloud. Sad. Again, I'm happy to respond if I can, or you can respond to me if I'm lying, if I'm curving something wrong. Let me know. I'm a humble man. I can repent, but this is what I found as I'm looking at it. Now let's switch. So my point would be: there's no way in heck, by evidence, that Joseph had any sort of education that's going to allow him to do the words in the Book of Mormon. In fact, I'm going to read just 10 words out of the Book of Mormon. Just you think, okay, could Joseph have known these words? Because that's what the critics and anti say. Oh yes, he did so much with the written word. He knew lots. Okay, so put my glasses on here. Let me read the 10 words, see what you think. Abhorrence. It's a nice start. I could do 10 and 10 and 10 and 10. There are hundreds of words like this. I'm just giving you 10. Condescensions. Can you tell me, can you spell it first? Can you tell me what it means? Condescensions. 4 syllables. Distinguished. 3 syllables. Illuminated. 5 syllables. Lasciviousness. 5 syllables. Privation. 5 syllables. Supplicating. 4 syllables. That's 7. I'll wait for these last 3. Okay. First one. Transfiguration. That's 5 syllables and 15 letters. Oh yeah, he just pulls it up like that. Transfiguration, no sweat. Do you know how to spell it? Can you use it correctly in a sentence? The next one. Now we're on to 9 of 10. Excuse me. Stiff-neckedness. Again, that's kind of a strange one, but that's 4 syllables, and 15 letters. It's a pretty big word to just stick in somewhere. The last. Incomprehensible. 6 syllables, 16 letters. Now, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but as I look at that, I'm thinking, okay, Joseph, with a minor education, whatever it might have been, he would have to know words that are unbelievable. And again, this is 10. I have 10 more and 10 more and 10 more. There are hundreds of words like this that I would say Joseph could not have done that. And of course, that's what all my videos are going to prove over time. Interesting angle. This innuendo, this condescension from the critics, the antis. Oh, Edwin, you poor boy, you don't know anything. Let me help you out here. And they give me information. Where's the source? In fact, I had another guy on my channel, a brother, a defender, said he had a conversation with a critic, and he said, oh, interesting, where'd you get that source for this thing we're talking about? From over here. It's another anti. He's quoting other antis. There's no base information to be given. But that's the tactic they use. You'll see that just shortly down the road. Okay, second section here. We're quite a lazy and I don't want to take a lot of time. 57 days. Less than 2 months. Now, again, this is a retort from the critics. Oh, it's not that unusual for a really smart guy. Many people have done this kind of thing, this gray world, created this gray world. And that means new names, new places, wars, kind of a Christian background. Look at the Lord of the Rings. Well, that is, just kind of like, they're kind of the same. It's not a big deal to do. It's other people have done this, so no big thing. But here's what they don't tell you, and it's almost always hey, I'll tell you, a little bit of the truth, not the whole truth, a little truth. As an example, The Lord of the Rings, from first word written to last word done, took 12 years. That's 12 years. And the way it was described in writing, the author would write, edit, write, quit for a while, just ponder, come back, do the same over, because one thing that critics don't want to bring up is this editing process. It's stunning. I've written 2 books unpublished. I'm writing 2 more. So far unpublished. But man, the editing is everything. The first book I wrote, I got 600 words out in about 6 months. That's a lot of stuff. I'm very impressed. So I kind of edited some down. I took it to a professional editor to actually have it done. I have 200 words left. That's it. Or 200 pages, pardon me, 200 pages. Because editors say, let's make it clean. Let's make a good job of it. Lord of the Rings, whack, add. It's the way authors are. The critics don't want to talk about that. They don't talk about a lot of things. They want to give, again, innuendos. Well, they started telling stories at 17, so we had 6 years just to kind of figure it out. Again, there's no asterisk to anywhere other than one small place where Mother Smith said that. They assume, and they assume so much. That's why the words in the Book of Mormon are cool, because they are black and white. Joseph either got them or he didn't. And if you go along with me, you'll find that that's just a pretty hard thing to do. Especially not just take the word, even a big word, but plug it in somewhere where it's defined exactly right. And you'll see that over and over again. Our first big test is 60 words. If you take some of that, you'll go, whoa, that's pretty amazing. But I digress. Where I'm going next is I'm going to show where the defenders of the faith came from. It's from the forgotten section of the Doctrine and Covenants. One that I'll tell you what it is in the next video. You're going to go, I don't know anything on that. No, no one does. But that's where the clarion call came from Joseph Smith for defenders of the faith to push back on these people who are destroying us or trying to destroy us. Then I've got 4 different videos that center around the critics, the antis. Well, where did they actually come from? What was their first position and what was it like? What did it grow into today? Has it changed at all? Is it about the same? You'll see dramatic, interesting things there. And what philosophy do they use? And they adopt a very specific philosophy that allows them to do things that are stunningly wrong. Well, that's the next few. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate you just hanging with me a little while. Once we get into these words, you'll start to see a pattern. And the pattern is, there's no way Joseph Smith could have been the author of the Book of Mormon at 23. I accept him as a prophet and as a very smart man. Eventually, he had a great vocabulary. He learned so much, but his education came after the translation of the Book of Mormon in 1829. Someone show me by asterisk, give me a source. Where did he get his education prior to that? I can track it down after, and he's very good. He's a smart man. But he had no training to do the Book of Mormon prior to 1829. Look forward to seeing you on down the road, and thank you for supporting. See you later.